What's happening, everybody? Welcome to this week's live stream. I hope you're all doing great today. So we got a pretty fun one today. We are going to be designing a blank from the ground up based on some sort of an inspiration. And I don't know what this inspiration is, but Turner's Warehouse sent this package to me. And whatever's in this package, I didn't open it, I didn't peek, it's still taped up. Whatever's in there, we're going to use that as inspiration for a new blank. And I think this is a pretty, I don't know, I think this will be pretty fun because this is kind of how most people make blanks, I think. You know, you have some design inspiration, you want to, you know, like Halloween's coming up, you want to make one that's like kind of like witches, or you want to make, you know, like one of the blanks that's going to be coming back, it's a seasonal blank for me, is this one's like kind of based on, it's kind of a pumpkin spice, pumpkin pie type of an idea. And so the colors that are in this blank and the way it looks, I want it to represent that. So that's kind of what we're doing today. It should be pretty fun. I think what we were going to do, originally we were going to do something like a pre-sale for these blanks. I was going to make kind of a short run of them, but the problem is it's really tough to do that like today because nobody knows what the blanks are going to look like. And I was thinking a little bit more about this, and a lot of times what happens when you're doing this is, you know, you come up with an idea of how you want to accomplish your colors or your blank. And the problem is it doesn't always work out the first time, go figure, or it's not exactly how you wanted it. And so I think what we're going to do is maybe a couple different versions, depending on what this is. If I feel like, nope, this is going to be the colors, this is what I want, then that's fine. If I'm a little bit unsure and I'm like, this could go a couple different ways, then we'll do two pours and see which ones we like the best. And at that point, then I'll just do kind of a short run of them. Eventually, if it's like the greatest blank on the planet, I may end up adding it to my inventory. But at this point right now, I'm just planning to do kind of like a couple batches of whatever we come up with, whichever design is the best. And then we'll have those for kind of a limited run. So it should be pretty cool. Before we get started, I wanted to let you guys know, Turner's Warehouse keeps doing these awesome sales on Saturdays. It's a one-day sale, and you don't have to be there at the you know, like physically, it's online too. This week they got the Junior Duke pen kit, which is one of my favorites. I don't have one here. I should go buy some since they're on sale. One of my favorites. It's a really, you know, I like the Junior series of, you know, it's a two-piece rollerball or fountain. And it's a really good looking kit. It's got kind of like barbed wire around it, I think. Is that, let me look at it real quick. I was taking a peek. Like so like the center band's got like some barbed wire, and the finial has kind of a star on it. So it's kind of like a Western theme pen kit, but the finishes are really good and they're on sale. How much are they on sale for? They're only $13 right now. Like, buy all of them, guys. Like, seriously, I'm going to go and stock up. So, anyway, there's a link to that. I just wanted to kind of let you guys know. It's always fun to see what's on sale every week at this point. I'm like, oh, what are they going to do now? So, hey, Julie's here. How's it going? So let's scroll to the top. It looks like Brian was here first over at TBC Bushings. And then Jean probably had to leave. I'm not sure if Jean's still here. I know she's got soccer going on. Oh, Chad's here. What's up? And Amy, I saw Amy. Paul and Mark. Kim's here. Nice. And Mr. Cooper. Bruce Mullins. Welcome. Who else? I saw somebody new. Jules the cat. How's it going? Welcome to the stream. And let's see. Ice Dragon Land. Sorry about that. Cool. Welcome. Awesome. It's for all the cowboys out there. It's a good kit. There's so many different blanks that look good with it that like just match like perfectly. So anyway, it's a pretty good one. Oh, Jean's still here. Nice. Cool. Well, let's not delay too much. Is there anything else? Well, one thing that I wanted to mention. So my Think Pink blanks are going to be going on sale for Breast Cancer Month, October. So be looking for that sale coming up. I need to look at how I guess I could do it either way, but I'm probably going to put the pink glitter blanks on sale as well. But this one was kind of developed for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So be looking for those guys. Be looking for the pumpkin spice or pumpkin pie blanks coming. They will be back in stock fairly soon here. So if you're looking for pen blanks, and actually I came up with a new kind of autumn fall type of a themed blank that I think is kind of going to be cool. So I got all kinds of stuff going on. We got some releases I've had blanks that we've actually kind of made some of them on the stream that I need to add to inventory. I got all these blanks sitting in a pile and I need to get them on the website sometime. So I'm going to cut this guy open. Hopefully I'm not cutting anything that's in here. And, there's instructions. It's kind of like the mystery boxes. So let's see here. Oh, Ann made it. Nice. And Al and Johnny and Kevin and Old Man River. You guys are just popping in all over the place. Okay, so open up the secret dossier. All right, I'm going to read the instructions. I can't see. There's a picture, I believe. All right, so it says, "Hey, Zach, we wanted to send you a couple of images for an inspiration. We hope that you can pull some cool ideas from them." I can't read. For the first image, we chose Cylon from Battlestar Galactica. Yes, I love Battlestar Galactica. That's like my favorite. The color contrast in this photo is divine. The magenta hues mix well with it. There's a whole explanation of what's going on. Magenta hues mix well with the metallic chromes. You can see hints of dark blue to black within the character's mask. There's very little green lighting within. There's very little green. I can't read. Sorry. Too many words. Oh my God. Within the image as well. This pairs so well with the magenta. This makes for some cool color crafting. The tones within this image almost give it an ominous vibe. For the second image, we chose a sci-fi desert. It's almost like an untouched wasteland with dark green skies. That's cool. Perhaps the air is mixed with gases, which could pull green and yellow hues out. If you look closely towards the ground, it looks like gas in the air surrounding smaller rock formations and over the water. As for the desert landscape, we loved how the ridged the rocks looked, and they look like sharp splinters of petrified wood. Oh, that's cool. Or just super sharp rocks eroded by the atmosphere. There are also hints of grass and moss in very small areas between the rocks as well. We'd love to see what you can create from these concepts. We hope they are as captivating to you as they are to us, the Turner team. Awesome, and they all signed it. Okay, let's look at these pictures, guys. What do you think? Okay, number one, the Cylon. What? That's wicked. Look at all those colors. That is cool. Got a lot of stuff going on in this picture. Wow. Okay, that's number one. Ooh, look at that desert landscape. That's pretty cool too. Wow. Oh, I'm coming off the camera here. Zoom out a little bit. So what do you guys think? Which one do you guys like better? You overwrote it. That's cool. It's just, I'm like, oh, what? Words. Use your words. I am not a voiceover character. I'm always amazed. I listen to audiobooks on Audible, and some of these people, I mean, they're doing like multiple voices and they're doing all this stuff and they're basically just reading a book to you. And I'm like, man, I would just stutter and mess that up all over the place. Always impressive. So, which one do you guys think? I think we're going to have to do a poll because I don't think it's going to work just reading. So let's start a poll. Can't type either. Okay, so let's do the poll here. See what we get here. A mix of both? No, we want to focus on one thing, because otherwise, I mean, I could just dump every color I have in and it would just be like, okay, whatever. So let's do one or the other just to make sure, because the thing is at the end, you know, this is one of the things about this is, so if you make blanks or pens for people, you know, a lot of times people are going to be like, oh, you know, I really love this or that, you know, or like somebody contacted me a while ago and they're like, I have a cat, can you match the color of it? Which was kind of a tough one because it was basically just a black cat. But but you know, people want things that are kind of representative of some inspiration a lot of times. And so whether you're just a pen maker or whether you're a blank maker or just an artist in general, you know, a lot of times you'll get things that people want it to be, you know, representative of something. And so a lot of times, you know, they'll give you a picture or they'll do something. You'll have like, a lot of times it's a visual thing. Even if it's kind of an abstract idea, like a few years ago, well, many years ago at this point, I was snowboarding and I'm riding up this chairlift and I'm like, I should totally do some sort of an alpine skiing themed, you know, blank. And so that got me thinking, you know, and number one, I'm out in nature, so I'm looking at, you know, what's around me. And there's like, you know, trees, there's obviously snow and all this stuff. And it kind of got me to the point where I just kind of wanted like an Arctic kind of blank. And so then I started pulling up different things, and like I thought, like, you know, icebergs have really cool blues and kind of whites, but lots of different blues in them. And so I was picking from, you know, in that case, that it was a few different types of things, but I really had a vision of one thing in my head that I wanted out of the blank. When I was talking about the icebergs, I just knew that the blue that I wanted in them was like kind of like an iceberg. And so it's kind of crazy how things can kind of go, you know, spread out, let's say. But it's a pretty cool little thing, you know, trying to do this. And, you know, like at one point, somebody, not too long ago, somebody emailed me and they're like, oh, can you recreate somebody else's blank that they liked? And I'm like, I'm not copying somebody's blank. And that was actually when I really got the inspiration to do this type of a thing on the stream, is where, you know, people want to see, okay, I got this thing in my head, or I got this picture or something, that I want to make a blank that kind of represents those colors. And so that's where this came from. So it'll be pretty fun, I think. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get chrome. Uh, we can just pour clear and then put a chrome tube on it, and we'll call that one good. Well, honestly, they're both good. I like either one of them, so it's not really, it doesn't really matter to me which one we do. My brain can look at these things and you know, start kind of coming up, because I do this all the time, and especially like lately I've been coming up with all kinds of designs, so I'm kind of in design mode, and it doesn't really matter so much which one. Like I said, you guys nailed things that I'm interested in, so I'm all in either way we go. Let's see here. Jungan silver, I'm not sure what that is. And then somebody asked, what pigments do you use for Michigan? I actually don't make Michigan team blanks. So I was using, and the problem is I use Alumilite white dye, so it's not, or Alumilite white resin for my team color blanks, which is not totally different from every other resin out there. So it's kind of a different thing. But unfortunately with those, the dyes that I just use Alumilite dye, like they're, well, I guess they changed the bottle, so they look like these now. I just use Alumilite dyes for those things, and the problem is blue and yellow bleed so terribly bad with dyes. And I honestly, we were trying to make a Northern Arizona University blank, which is basically Michigan colors, and it's so hard to not get dyes to bleed that if you're going for blue and yellow, I would actually recommend just go with mica. Just no dye in it at all, because it just, for some reason, one of the problems is, especially if you swirl it, even if they don't really bleed that much, if you get really close color, like lines, where you swirled it and they're very thin lines of yellow and blue, the problem is you're looking at it and your eye just turns that to green, seeing both of those right next to each other. So that one's a tough one. And maybe, I don't know if you're talking about Michigan University or Michigan State, but I do have a Michigan State blank. It's green and white, but I just use Luminolite dyes for those. Mark from Liverpool, how's it going? Okay, so let's roll it down here. Where's my poll? We're gonna end the poll. Oh no. It was higher for Cylon. Now it's 50-50. Has anybody not voted yet on the poll? We're trying to pick an inspiration, one of these. So this is the Cylon, this is the desert. So anybody that hasn't voted in the poll yet, vote now, because we're locked up at 50-50. And I'll decide if it ends up being 50-50. I'm not going to wait too much longer here, but by your command. I kind of like the new Battlestar Galactica series. I like the looks of these Cylons, but the new one was like epic. I really love that one. All right, we're still at 50-50. So I think we're going to end the poll, and I'm just going to choose. So that didn't really work out in the end. So 50-50, you guys, it's tough. It's tough. So here's the deal, guys. I think the one that, even though I really like this one, I actually have blanks that kind of have like the purples and blues, like that's kind of like my nebula. And there's green and red and all that stuff. But to really make a pen blank that exemplifies this, I kind of have blanks that look like that already. And so that's probably the direction that I would have ended up going anyway. So I think let's go with this one, because I think it is a little bit more nuanced, and I've never really made anything like this. Okay, so that's going to be the tiebreaker, why I'm choosing this. So let's see here. Where can I guess let's just kind of keep it on the screen. We'll put the Cylon away. And a lot of this, the thing is, there's no right answer to any of this stuff. It's interesting because it depends on how you view this. Because for me, the Cylon, if I was going to make a pen blank that was like, in my head, I'm going to think about like, what's the theme? What's the idea behind this? Not just, and this is just the way, and like I said, there's no right answer. It's just the way that I kind of think about these things a lot of times. When I look at a picture of like a physical object, like a Cylon robot, like I would want to make a blank that looks like chrome, which is going to be extremely difficult. There's silver micas and stuff like that, but it would be fairly difficult to actually get a blank that looks like a robot, So that makes it a little bit tougher. This one's kind of interesting because I think we can really nail this. I mean, it really, my brain's like, I think we can do this. It's got a lot of interesting things going on, whereas the other one just kind of had a lot of like bleeps and blops of color. So anyway, that's just whatever. Oh, so I was saying about the theme. So, with this one, we're in space, and I don't know if there's as much of a theme. It's not like, snowboard mountain kind of thing, but it is deserty, and it's also spacey. So we got a lot of interesting stuff. So let's switch over to the Sony cam. And so part of this also, what's going to be involved with this is not only are we dealing with a theme, and depending on how you how you interpret this inspiration. You know, you may want to do things like pour it a certain way, possibly, right? That may be a consideration. The other thing about this is obviously like the colors, and I think that's going to be one of the kind of really interesting parts about this, is to try and really get the colors kind of nailed down. Now, it's really difficult to get very specific, you know, like exact matches. I mean, you know, like I sell team color inspired blanks. I've never said that they're exact matches. They're inspired by, they're pretty close. And that's about as good as you're going to get in the, you know, for the most part with these things. There's just no good way to transfer the dyes that we use into any type of like a system, you know. So it's based on just kind of mixing and matching and trying to get the color that you want. Now, we have two different options. We've got dyes and we've got micas, and you can intermix them all to kind of adjust your colors. If you're lucky, you might just be able to pull out some mica colors that pretty much match this stuff. You know, that makes things pretty easy. Now, one thing that I'm seeing is there's a lot of gold. If you just kind of like let your eyes kind of unfocus, there's a lot of like gold tones in this. There is kind of like a, I don't know what, it's like a reddish tan sort of thing, like a brown, like a light tan kind of, but it has a little bit of reddish in there. Obviously we got some space. And so looking at this picture, you can kind of draw a line between these things. You got a lot of like space sky, and then you got a lot of like landscape down here. All right. And so I think to create this type of thing, and obviously, you know, with our swirls and things, we should be able to kind of mimic this landscape kind of idea. But I think that we need some kind of like beige type colors, probably some gold, probably altered golds. There's almost kind of a greenish tint to this kind of gold. Some reddish, cream reddish kind of, and then some darker. So the thing is, eventually you need to kind of limit your colors also. Sometimes, you know, you can only do so much. And I don't think that putting every single color that we see in this thing is really going to give us what we want. That's why I was saying, like, it's almost better to like unfocus your eyes sometimes and just what's going on, because that's kind of what you're going to get in a pen blank. You're not going to create a picture just dumping liquids together. So I think we should split the pour though a little bit, where we have kind of a dark spacey thing, which I already have, and the more you do of this, the more you're going to be like, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to do with that, because I have, you know, some mixture. So for the space, we're going to go with the black, possibly a little bit kind of see-through, maybe not like super dark black, because this isn't, you know, dead black, but we're going to go for a space kind of look. And I definitely want to get something that, you know, goes for this planet. I want to put a blob that kind of, you know, you get this kind of this color. So this is like light blue, kind of a few mixtures of blues, and then you kind of have some silver with the rings. All right. So let me write some notes down. This is, and I think we can kind of nail this actually on one shot. Another thing that you could do with something like this is, and we actually just did this with a new blank that I made for Turner's Warehouse. So one of the things that we had talked about was the Arizona flag, and they were like, oh, you know, if you could make a blank that looks kind of like that. And so what we ended up doing actually for that was splitting it into two different blanks. And so that's something that you could also do if you're trying to make a pen that's like a, you know, like a junior Duke on sale today only. You can make one blank, you know, that takes all of this type of color in, and then make another blank, and then make that each piece, and then you'd actually get two pens out of it. I don't think we need to do that in this case, but that is something else that you could also think about. All right, so we're gonna split this. There's gonna be a little bit of thinking going on with this, like I said, and I'm just gonna share. So let me stop real quick and see if there's any questions. I've been in my own brain kind of talking here. Let's see here. Theme, space desert. Yeah, we're not gonna do a hybrid. I don't wanna do, I just wanna pour vertical blanks on this, because when you start introducing materials, then things get kind of, you can go all kinds of crazy. So we're just doing vertical pours. This is supposed to be kind of a color design idea. A lot of the point of this also is to try and be matching colors, because I know a lot of people always want to, how do you match colors? How do you do this? Yeah, I love sci-fi. It's fun. Okay, so we got kind of a space sky and that planet. And then we have kind of the desert. So for the colors in the space sky, we're gonna go with the black, and actually I just added this blank. So the black, I call it deep space. That'll be coming to my store soon. Plus silver plus kind of a weird, you know what this looks like actually, that I think would probably nail like this entire planet, is the beetle blue. Where's my beetle blue? I think that would probably, is it beetle blue or maybe even macaw? I mean, seriously, that's pretty much right there. And we're going to be mixing in some silver with this for the rings, which kind of also nails the kind of clouds. You could, if you really wanted to, there's like a little bit of kind of cloudiness going on in there. You could add a little bit of white. One thing to keep in mind, like if you get to the point where you've got like 15 colors that you're trying to pour and do two different things at different levels in the blank, it may get to the point where you've overcomplicated it and you're probably going to fail pouring. So like it could get to the point where you're probably not going to actually be able to get it poured. And that's why I was saying, in some cases you may actually want to just split it if it's getting too complicated and there's two totally different like areas or something like that. You could really get kind of nuts on this planet and the space part of it, and just create a blank, that's specifically that, so that you have enough time to be able to do what you want to do with that kind of stuff. Like I said, I don't want to overcomplicate this. I really want this kind of space. I want to get the planet, which I'm telling you, like beetle blue pretty much nails it. We could even, and this is the macaw blue green. I think what we could do is actually mix these two together, and we pretty much have the planet nailed. And I would actually almost like dirty pour those two together, and we got the planet. And then we'll do some silver for the rings. So let me switch this. So the black part is going to be my deep space mix, and I'll show you guys what that is. It's very simple. The planet is going to be beetle blue. And one thing to let you guys know about, so I'm going to switch to this view. For anybody that doesn't know what a dirty pour is, so let's try to simplify, and I'm just going to give you an example. Let's say that I was just trying to do the space part of this, not the desert. And so I've got black kind of with some stars in it. We've got silver for the rings, and then we've got the planet. All right, so there's like three things that we're trying to accomplish. And what I'm trying to do with the planet is mix these two. I don't want to mix them together in one cup. I want to kind of mix them together separately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have, probably not this much, a huge cup of it, but I'm going to have pour some resin in one cup, pour some resin in the other. I'm going to mix beetle blue in one, fully mix it in, mix macaw blue green in the other, fully stir it into that, and then I'm going to let them sit, but eventually I'm just going to dump them together. And what that's doing is it's going to put them very close together, so you're going to get very tight kind of swirls. It's going to be, like kind of all mixed up type thing. But one of the advantages of doing that, like mixing them together before you have to pour, is you don't have to pour 2 different cups. It kind of helps out, and like I said, in this case, the Planet is really a very tight mixture. It's both of those colors. So I think a dirty pour in that case is probably a good way to go. All right, so let's cover these guys back up. So we got that nailed. So that's what a dirty pour is. It's where you're dumping 2 different colors into the same cup, then pouring it out, and it's all going to kind of come out in like striations, strands, hopefully. And even if it like kind of bleeds together or whatever, that's fine. I don't really care about that. You've got all these different colors going on. So we got beetle blue and macaw. I'm just going to call it macaw. It's like a blue-green. And we're going to dirty pour that. This is going to be a pretty complicated pour, just to let you guys know. So there's a lot of things that I need to kind of, focus on. Just with this first half, we got quite a few moving parts. We're going to have 3 different colors technically, but we're going to have 4 different things going on. So you might, if you're doing something complicated, make sure that you really understand and think about how is this pour going to go before you start pouring it. And we'll kind of go through that. I'll explain what I have in my brain for the pour before we actually pour it. Because once we start pouring, I'm probably not going to be like, oh, let me stop and show you. It'll be like, okay, go time. And then for the silver, I got to be honest, this is probably my favorite silver ever. This is the P-Town Subby Silver Gray. It is extremely good if you're trying to get like silver like that. All right. So we're going to go with the Silver Gray for the silver. Okay, so we got the space sky planet. Let's see if there's any questions or... Oh yeah, and so for the black, what we're going to do is the deep space is just black, and like Kim said, plus the micro starlight. It literally gives you exactly this, but it has twinkle, so you have like little specks of stars. It's gonna be a little bit more homogeneous than there's a little bit of, stuff going on there. If we really, really wanted to, we could probably get this effect where there's kind of blotches of stars, kind of doing the same idea with the dirty pour, but it would be a little bit more simple. We just have a cup of black, and then we'd have another cup of black with this in it, and then we would dump them together, and you should get kind of pockets a little bit more. I don't know that that's really worth the time. In the end, it's only going to be like half the blank, and so I think we're just going to go with 1 black. But with this micro starlight, and I sell this stuff on my website, I love this. Goes with anything. It'll make any blank. If you just add it in there, it's kind of a spacey one, especially when you're talking blacks and purples and reds. It's like, oh, space, micro starlight. So that's what I call my deep space blank. So we'll do black plus micro starlight for that. Okay, so we got all of our colors. And I don't think that I really need to be messing around. Now, the one thing that I'm kind of just avoiding, if you really wanted to get kind of nuts, you could try to match where there's like this gradient. But offhand, I don't know of a really good way to make a gradient just for half the blank, especially to try and get this kind of like horizon color. I don't think it's really necessary. I think we're getting the idea. There's space up here, a planet. I think I'm just going to focus on that. I think it would start getting kind of, this is a weird color, and I don't know that it's fully necessary. I think that if we just get the kind of like this rocky kind of craziness, and then this idea, I think we're doing good. Okay, now for the desert, this one's a little bit more difficult here. So we're going to need a beige. And this is where you need to start pulling out lots of different types of things. Beige can be a tough one. Turner's Warehouse sells dyes, though. And they've got a decent tan pigment. So I don't know if you guys knew, and I haven't really used a whole lot of these, but they sell pigment dyes. And they've got a tan that I think with a little bit of finagling, we could get this tan to be kind of like a creamy beige. So basically we're just going to need to add some white to that, and then we can kind of lighten it and get that kind of creamy beige color. We could even add a little bit of like red possibly to it. So we're going to mix a little bit, and maybe what we'll do is we'll actually use dyes for the landscape, because they are kind of more solid colors, you know. I think the micas work pretty well for the planet. Micas would work good for this kind of like, for this stuff, but these rocks I think probably would do best if we could pull a little bit of this dark out, the white creaminess, and then like this kind of reddish, it's almost like it's like kind of pinkish. I think if we mix that, we would get the rock formations pretty well, and then maybe just go for like and I would definitely say like a dirty pour for this kind of like, I don't know if this is like grassy or what, but there is some greens in here, there's some, you know, tans, there's gold colors, yellows. So we could kind of come up with like a little bit of a dirty pour mix in micas for this, pour some dyes on, and I think that we'd be pretty much there. So, you know, obviously this is kind of like a brownish. I would probably just go with brown for that. And this is where it really pays to have lots of different types of things. I think what I want to do for that is just use the brown from Illumil. And I know this isn't the right, I buy big jugs of it. I buy like the 16-ounce things. So this is just Illumilite brown dye, and then I just buy 1-ounce bottles. So I think what we're going to do is we're actually going to go with, and this is a transparent dye, but we're going to use it. It's really dark, but it should be fine. So we're going to use that for these kind of dark areas. I think it's going to bring, you know, sitting next to something this dark, I think it'll cover it fine. And then, sorry, this light, you know, going for these like kind of lighter colors. I think just having a see-through dark brown will nail that. We're going to create a concoction. Probably have to do it in the cup, but we'll have to add some of this, and then we'll add some white dye to that. And then we need to get this kind of pink one. That one's going to be a little bit tough. So, and for these, let's see here. There's definitely gold in there. So I think Olympic gold. We kind of need like a greenish gold almost. That's going to be a difficult one. So I think we'll mix like some yellow, gold, and green for this kind of, it'll be a little bit weird, but what we're going to end up doing is just mixing them all together in a dirty pour. So it should kind of work pretty well. And I think also, I mean, this stuff is really bleedy, blended together. We're actually going to dump that, and I'll explain that. Most of you guys know about like waiting till the end of the working time. We're actually going to pour these together kind of early, on the early end of it. So that would be the first thing we pour together. The next one would be the blues for the planet. We would pour them together, and this is prior to us actually doing all this stuff. But like I said, this is going to be kind of complicated. Like this is something where you know, I always talk about keeping a notebook. You know, and this blank is going to be so complicated to make that I would actually recommend, we all have an iPhone, or not an iPhone, but like a smartphone that can take video. So I go on Amazon, get yourself a $10 tripod that'll hold your phone. And I would actually like record doing something like this, because otherwise it's going to be extremely difficult. Even if you wrote down pretty good notes, it's going to be pretty tough to really recreate all these steps and figure out what's going on. Better to actually just take a video of it. That's a good question. And putting a drop of green dye in the gold. You can do that. You can mix gold and green together, micas. You can't, what I would not recommend is you don't want to just put a drop of dye in the resin and don't touch it, like don't stir it in. Because at that point, what's going to happen is the resin is going to basically cure around the dye, that blob of dye. And if you cut into it, it's just going to be liquid dye in the end. So you need to mix everything in, mix your dyes in with the resin, and then you could just do a little drop. But to get like a gold green, you can mix them together. I don't know what that would exactly look like. That may not be exactly what we're going for. That's why I think just doing them, and I'm going to mix all three of these in separate cups, and we're going to pour them all together, and that's going to give us a kind of a very mixed up kind of bleedy, kind of look for that bottom landscape. But it's a good question. So I'm not sure exactly what you meant by that, but so we got rocks. So there's actually almost 3 different things going on here, but the kind of ground, and I think I'm going to have to lighten this yellow. Actually, they have a lighter yellow. So they got daisy yellow. So like honestly, a lot of times you don't even necessarily need to come up with and like create your own colors. There's like a lot of these, mica people have almost every color you need, but to get like very specific shades, like I said, sometimes you can mix the 2 micas together. Sometimes you could add a little bit of dye to your mica, and that will kind of change the shade of it. I think in this case, we're going to be okay though. I don't think it's going to really require a whole lot if we just kind of blend all this stuff together. I don't know. We'll have to see. Like I said, if you're going for something extremely specific, you may not nail it on the first shot anyway. Now, for these rock formations, we are going to have to do a little bit of finagling with dyes. This is where we're going to get a little bit of a workshop of dyes. All right, so one thing that you can do is just get some small cups. Actually, I even have smaller ones. Forgot about these guys. Not a bad idea to pick like a big case of these things up. And the beauty of this is we can kind of play around with these dyes. I got to shake this thing up. And see what they look like for the most part before we even put it in resin. So we don't have to be sitting here trying to, work on it while the resin's setting up on us. I know, well, we got a few different things, but I think it'll be kind of cool. We'll have a few different layers here. Happy little clouds. All right, so I'm gonna actually add a little bit more in here. The tough thing is, if you want to get repeatable results, coming up with dye mixtures like this that you can use all the time, you're gonna have to waste probably a ton of dye, because what would be nice is to find out like what ratio of whatever color we're going to add to this to get another color, right? Sometimes dye, getting specific colors can be extremely expensive and or just time consuming. So I just want to kind of warn you about that. It can get a little bit nuts. Now we're just going to kind of play around with this. So we got, a little bit of this cup, and then we're going to add a drop, and this isn't going to be super repeatable on this first try. Maybe we'll do 2 drops, and then we'll just kind of mix this together and see what shade we get. Okay, so that didn't really do a whole lot of anything. So in some cases you might need to dump a ton of white in, and then add just a drop of the tan. This is why even when you're just practicing and messing around, it's not, you know, we're on a camera right now, we're recording, so I don't really have as much, have to worry so much about writing down or measuring right now, because I can kind of see what I did if I just watch the video back. But sometimes you just need to experiment. And that's what I'm doing, is just trying to see, you know, if I mix these two colors, am I going to get in the ballpark, which we're starting to get there, but I mean, it's still pretty dark. If I'm trying to, you know, copy these creamy parts, which you could almost just go for like a white on those, but just a little bit of so to get kind of a lot of times what I'll end up doing is I'll play with stuff and then I'm going to have to go back. And so that's why I'm saying, you know, a lot of times color matching, I mean, you're just going to waste dye, and dye's not cheap. So I just want to let you guys know, be ready for that if that's what you're trying to accomplish. You know, dye, like mixing up your own colors of dyes. Just be ready for it. Now we're starting to get there. I think there's a little bit of yellow going on in there though that we're going to need. So I'm going to add just a drop of yellow in here just to kind of bring it a little bit more to that yellow side of things. And then I think we're going to need to add quite a bit more white. There we go. That's getting a little bit closer to that, especially these colors. So the problem is there's a lot of shades of colors. I'd like to try to nail some of this kind of creamier stuff, but I think we're starting to get really close to some of these colors in here. That yellow might have been a little bit too much yellow. So I'm going to actually, to get to that creamy area, we really need to add a lot more white. That's going to tone down that yellow, adding more white. And one thing that I highly recommend if you are going to be getting into color matching and doing all that kind of stuff, the first thing you should probably do is get a color wheel. That way you know, okay, well, if I have red dye and I add blue to it, then I'm going to get a kind of a purple. Now, this is not going to give you all the answers, but if you don't really fully understand, you know, the general color wheel type stuff, you know, this will definitely help you out. So you can see, you know, by adding different colors to these things, what you're going to get. And that really helps you kind of get into the ballpark on these things. And they're cheap. You can pick those up at an art store or online. Hey, what's up, David? Okay, we're still extremely tan, so we're going to have to add a lot more white to get to that cream area. So I think it would have been smarter to start with white and then add a little bit of tan to it, because that's basically what we're doing here. There we go. Now we're getting in there. Now we're getting closer. But you can see it's really difficult to come up with like a ratio when you're talking about like drops, and to get it to be something that can be consistent. I mean, you really need to be adding, like, you know, 10 to 1, 1 to 1, 100 to 1, whatever. It needs to be some sort of a ratio that you can pre-mix if you're going for something that you need to make, you know, over and over again. So just be aware of that. Like I said, it can kind of get a little bit on the expensive side, you know, trying to get colors, because I'm just dumping, you know, colors in here. And for like a one-off, that's fine. But if you need to make more, then you're going to have to figure out, okay, what actually is the ratio, you know? And so I think, like, I'm trying to kind of keep track of in my brain. I'm just playing right now. This is not how I recommend if you do need to do multiples. We're going to redo this. And I'm going to start with white, and I'm going to pour in a specific amount. In fact, I'm going to weigh it probably, and try to figure out like an actual ratio. But now I think we're getting to the point where that's still a little bit dark. For the creamy color. Okay, so I think what we need to do is sometimes you just run into a wall and I can sit here and dump and dump and dump, but I think what I need to do is switch the way that I'm doing this. That gave me a good idea of what's going on, where I need to go with this. So let's put in, I'm just measuring out like 5 grams of white. Because eventually I do need to get a recipe, right? So we're about 5.1. And then what I want to do is I want to add, the problem that I have with these, eventually they're going to have like the squeeze. Oh, actually I put it in a squeeze bottle because I have it. So here's the Maker Select Tan. So what I want to do is I want to put just a drop to 5:1. And at least that's something that I can kind of repeat, right? Let's see what that does for us and how that compares to what I was doing. Definitely still pretty white, so let's add another drop. But this is going a better direction than me trying to get the tan cooled down. One, two, three. Oh, there we go. Starting to get in there. Four. Five. Still needs to like a little bit of yellow. So let's try to put like a really, this may ruin it, and sometimes you go way too far and there's no coming back. So try to do like a really small drop of yellow here. I think that's pretty good. A little bit on the yellow side, but I think once you put it next to some of the other colors, I think that's pretty close to the lighter colors. Like I said, maybe a little bit on the yellow side, but I think that we're okay. So we did 5 grams of white, 1 drop of yellow, and like 4 to 5 drops of the tan. All right, so that's our recipe. Not too shabby. And that's much easier than me sitting here dumping half a gallon of white, trying to get this back down. I think we could also use the tan. There are tans in there that we could use that just as it is. But what I'd like to do instead, actually, is I want to get some of this kind of reddish. So we're going to start with the tan. And like I said, I think to get the darker stuff, just adding this brown is good enough. I don't really think we have to do a whole lot more than that. So let me write down some notes. We got desert. We got the light tan is 5 grams white dye, 5 drops Maker's Select Tan, and 1 drop yellow. Dark brown is just going to be Alumilite brown dye. And then the reddish brown reddish kind of tan is what we're going to work on next. We might need a little yellow. We definitely need our tan. I got tan in here. So all I did was I just stuck this in a squeeze bottle so that I could drip it out. All right, so let's get us another little cup. I'm going to stop and see if anybody has any questions real quick here. What happened to David? Oh no. Yeah, I hope you're recovering well. Very scary. Pills, no fun. Sorry to hear that, man. Okay, so we're gonna start with, I'm gonna start with 3 grams of this tan. This may take a while. I think I need to puncture the nozzle a little bit further. And so, you know, just to let you know, like, these are colors that I haven't done too many of, so I think this is a pretty decent representation of what somebody that has never really done this before can expect. Sometimes you got to just take a shot in the dark if you really don't know really where to start. Just start mixing colors. Like I said, it's going to be expensive, but just mix something up. And see what happens. That's how I learned how to, you know, because like I said, it's a different way that I do it using the Alumilite white resin. Somewhat, it's a little bit different, but I mean, really, it's kind of the same type of thing. The biggest problem with the Alumilite white, so I want to stop real quick, because a lot of people always ask me, well, you make your blanks out of this Alumilite white resin, why don't you show us how to do it? And it's because I don't think it's worth it. Okay. For many reasons, and if I started again today and I didn't have all the recipes that I have, I would not use it. But it does have some advantages if you want to try it out, but I'm not going to go through and help, because every time I've tried to help people, they just find out that it's really difficult to work with. And one of the biggest problems with that resin, if you're trying, and all you can do is colors. You can't add mica powders to it. It's not going to give you any effects because it's an opaque resin. You mix A and B together and it turns solid white. All right, so the problem with that is some of you guys might be figuring out what the issue is. If you're trying to mix colors, basically I have to pour a full-on sample every single time. I can't be sitting here in a cup with just dye. I have to waste resin every time I want to try, you know, like a thing out, because I can add the dyes together. But it's going to turn white, so that means that I have to also account for it becoming lighter with that the white color of the resin. So it's just extremely difficult to work with, and I just don't recommend it for most people, when you can just sit here with a cup of dye and at least you're not wasting resin and time. You know, the other problem is I got to wait for each one of those things to cure, and they kind of change color a little bit even more, you know, the longer that they cure. So it's just not very fun. This is much easier just messing with dyes, I think. So, you know, the clear resins, even if you get it into the resin, you can even at that point kind of adjust while you're mixing it to get the right hue, where you have no clue what it's going to turn out to be with the Alumilite white. So I just wanted to kind of mention that. A lot of people always ask, and I'm like, it's just, trust me, it's not worth it. It's not worth messing with, I don't think. Because you can also get opaque colors, you know, using clear resin, using opaque dyes. So we're going to add we had 3 grams of tan. We're going to add a drop of red here. Let's see what that looks like. So it's kind of a shot in the dark. I'm just kind of like, okay, let's just kind of see. I don't know exactly what to expect, you know, with some of this. That's kind of interesting. So that's a little bit more on the pink side. It's definitely reddish. A little bit dark. So let's add a drop of white. So a couple things with colors. And again, like I said, if you don't really understand that, you know, yellow and blue makes green and those types of things, you know, what to expect with adding certain colors to other colors, get a color wheel. But adding black to every single color is going to darken it. All right, it's just going to make it darker. Very evident when you're looking at this orange. So just understand that if you want to darken a color, add black to it. If you want to lighten a color, is there white on this? Yeah, there's white. If you want to lighten a color, then you want to add white to it. In some cases, yellow will lighten some things up, but you're going to get yellow tint to there too. But lightening a color, white is going to be your answer. So we'll add a drop of white. Might have to add a little bit more. Remember, the tan, we kind of had to, I may want to do this the opposite way, where we're doing mostly white, because remember, this tan was really hard to get to lighten up. Lighten up! So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. We're actually going to, instead of doing drops, I'm going to put a gram of white in here and just see what that does. Sometimes you just got to see what it's going to do, you know. But every single time that you do one action, you know, you add a gram of white, every time you do that, you know, you see what the result of that is. And so you'll kind of get to the point where you're like, okay, I have kind of an idea. And the more different colors that you create, the more time you spend doing this. It's still not really where I want to be, I don't think. Still pretty red also. So we're going to add another gram of white. But the more experience you have, the more colors that you've seen, the more you're going to understand what you need to do to get to where you want to be, you know, with these colors. These are going to be really interesting. These I don't usually use a lot of dyes. Lately, especially, I've been doing a lot of micas. Now we're starting to kind of get there. But I think we need like another gram. Definitely red enough. Might almost be a little too red. So now we're at like 50-50 white and tan. Kind of keep that in mind. But man, this tan just does not, like, it really requires a lot of white. Starting to kind of get there. And at some points, you may not exactly know, because I don't exactly know what I need to do here. I'm just going to keep lightening this a little bit. It's obviously very easy to darken it up. I think we just need to kind of keep going with the white. So now we're at 4 grams white, to which I think what we're going to need to kind of do is just probably go like 2 to 1. Like 2 parts white to 1 part tan, plus a drop of red, I think is probably going to be a pretty decent recipe. Starting to really get there, I think, now. It's a little bit on the pinkish side, kind of looks a little bit Pepto-y, but I mean, this stuff is kind of pink. Like, it's tough to, just kind of tough to figure out here. I find these tans to be pretty difficult to nail, like different shades of tan and sand colored type things. That's one. I haven't done a lot of them, and they're kind of touchy. You're kind of like, what do I need to add to get that look, you know? But I think if we mixed this, here's the other thing. If we put these all kind of next to each other, we're gonna have a brown. And just to kind of give you an idea, I have like 3 billion of these cups, so I'm just gonna put it in here. Here's what the brown's gonna look like. And this is a transparent dye technically, but if you add enough of it, it's pretty dark and it's not really gonna be see-through. But I mean, at that point, if you put these 3 colors together, I think we're in the neighborhood of where we want to be with this stuff. We've got kind of a light one. We've got a dark one. You know, we've got a lot of these colors kind of pretty close. Especially there's a lot of that kind of pinkish kind of red over in here. So I think we're okay. Maybe a little bit more white, just to kind of tone this red down. So we're at more than 1 to 1. Let's see, 2 to 1. Maybe like 3 to 1. So I'm gonna actually dump, oh, I'm running out. Yeah, there we go. So we're at about 3 to 1 now. We're gonna lighten this up. I think it needs to be even lighter. There we go. Now that's starting to get to a kind of a clay. Could maybe even use a little bit of yellow, honestly. So I'm gonna dump, we're gonna do a little bit of a split here, and I just want to kind of see. Well, okay, what I'm going to do is we're just going to use a little bit of a toothpick. I want to really sneak up on this because I think the yellow could really make this kind of crazy. I'm going to put a toothpick of yellow. I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow dye to this mix. I think that might get me where I want to be. That to me is starting to really look like the clay. Maybe even like one more. Maybe could have got away with 1 drop of yellow. We're going to do 1 more toothpick. This is the tough thing, is this is really not very repeatable when you're talking about a toothpick amount of yellow. So maybe just get away with 1 drop next time. But this should kind of warm this up a little bit. Yeah, there we go. I think I probably could have gone with a drop of yellow. Okay, so I got to remember what I just did. Luckily, we have a video recording of it. But the reddish tan, we're going 3 to 1 white to tan dyes, plus a drop of red and a drop of yellow. Okay. That should kind of get us, so you don't need this cup of brown, into the ballpark. We're going to have a lot of colors, guys. This is going to be a pretty crazy pour. Just warning you. We're going overboard. Probably not going to be adding these to my lineup because they're extremely difficult to like my regular inventory, because this is more complicated than it's worth, but I think it's going to be fun for a short run. All right, so I think we're doing pretty good. Like I said, I might, like in some cases I may work a little bit harder to get even closer matches to these colors, depending on what's going on. But the thing is, in the end, we're also going to have a lot of other things happening in this blank, and I think that we're pretty close with the brown, tan, lighter tan, and then the red. And we can even do, let's see, we were also going to do one of these guys. I don't think we need to do that. I think it's already complicated enough just for those rock areas. All right, so in my brain, what we're going to do is we've got this grassy area that we're going to, you know, we're going to mix all the resin at once, okay? So I'm going to get a big cup. We're going to have a mixing cup. I'm going to mix all the resin at once, right? Then what I'm going to be doing, and I need to figure out numbers, but just imagine that these cups are not just superly oversized. Then what I'm going to do is we're going to break out some resin for each one of these colors into a different cup, all right? The beetle blue and the macaw blue green are going to go in 2 cups. Eventually I'm going to just dump those together and they're going to form 1 cup basically in the end. But we're also going to have the deep space, and we're also going to have some silver. Those colors are all going to be the last colors that we pour. The first colors are going to be let's see, what did we say? So we're going to be using the micas. So the first colors that we're going to pour are actually going to be these 3. I'm going to mix them into separate cups originally. So I'm going to have to split out some amount of resin into 3 different cups. I'm going to put some green, I'm going to put some gold, and I'm going to put some yellow in the 3 different cups, mix them up, kind of set them aside, and then probably around like 90 degrees, maybe even 80, actually probably like 85 degrees once we hit that temperature, I'm going to dump all the colors of those 3 into 1 cup. Okay, so that's going to end up being 1 cup that we're just going to dump into the bottom of the blank. Then we're going to work on these rock formations, which is going to be 3 different colors. Now, one thing to keep in mind, most of these opaque pigments are heavy, like much heavier than mica powder in resin. And so we probably are going to get a little bit of sinking going on. Whatever, that's okay, because this picture, the idea is it's all kind of mixed up anyway. I'm not that worried. But if we just kind of pour small pours of these 3 colors, that should take care of it, and it shouldn't sink too much, as long as we pour it at the right time, you know, once it's starting to gel up a little bit. And then to top it off, we're going to pour some, and it'll be kind of a back and forth thing between that blue mixture that we poured both colors in, the silver, and the deep space. Obviously the deep space, or the space, is going to be kind of more, we're going to have a little bit more of that than probably the silver and blue, but we'll just have to kind of figure that out. Now, how many colors do we have? So we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is a 10 color pour, guys. So it does ads in the live stream. That's crazy. Yeah, there's sometimes, you know, you can kind of get colors and all this stuff kind of as close as possible, but I mean, really, you know, it's pretty abstract. You're kind of, I need a drink. You know, in some cases you can really nail things, and the longer that you work on it, the more tries that you do, you know, the closer you could maybe get to really nailing like a you know, but it's a pen blank. I mean, you know. And I think in general, I probably wouldn't go to these lengths with all these different colors. Especially for like a production blank, I probably wouldn't do all this stuff, but I do want to show you guys a couple different things. You know, it's a good example of being able, especially on this first one, we're probably going to do more of these. And I may not go as in depth, you know, with all this stuff, but I want to show you guys, you know, like I'm kind of breaking the blank up, the pour into kind of different sections. That's one total, you know, specific aspect of this blank. We're doing the dirty pour in a couple different ways. One of them, I kind of want them to be more separated colors. One of them, I want them to actually kind of bleed. So we're mixing in the timing on that. But important to me is to kind of show you a little bit of like the color matching, like the, you know, mixing micas or dyes. It doesn't really matter which way you're going. I think dyes in general are easier to mix and get a specific color. You will get a color, but it's going to be a solid color. Micas, you can really, move them around, but sometimes you kind of hit a wall with mica powders where you really just can't keep going, like really convert it into a different color. So it can sometimes can be tough, but if all you're trying to do is kind of move a little bit that tone, the shade of the color of mica, they're pretty simple to kind of adjust. And I think we're actually going to need to, well, I think it'll be all right. We'll see once we get it in the cup. The one thing about the green in this, and part of the reason, this is part of the reason why I do want them to kind of bleed, but the green, this is a pretty bright green mica powder, and maybe a little bit much for that, but I can kind of tone it down if I'm looking in the cup and I'm like, whoa, that's not really going to work. I can kind of tone that tone that down a little bit. But I think it's important to kind of look at all these different types of aspects. So we're going a little in depth today. Having some fun with it, If you can't have fun with it, you shouldn't even do it. All right, so let's put some of these colors away. Then we have to, the next step is we need to figure out what ratio of the resin we need for each one of these colors. That's going to be, there's a lot of colors going on, so it's going to take a little bit to kind of figure out. Oh, I lost my cap. Okay. Okay, so we have our, I did write those things down. Okay, we got all that. All right, so we have 10 colors. Let's see here. So the reason that I switched to that side view, so what we're going to be doing is, like I said, these are just, that's the wrong, well, we can use this one. We're going to be using my Gatling mold. We're going to pour vertical blanks. This is a silicone mold, and I sell these on my website for anybody that wants them. Turner's Warehouse also has the P-Town Subby vertical silicone molds. They're a little bit cheaper. They're just different sizes. I didn't like the lengths that you got with those. They're great. They're perfectly fine molds, but I wanted to make a specific length for my blanks. So I made these, and you get 7 of them. I'm pretty sure most of the Turner's Warehouse or the P-Town Subby vertical blanks, I think they're all like, well, if you get the really tall one, they're 4 blanks, but I think the rest of them are 6. And I think they even have like a 12 blank one. It's kind of crazy. But they're a little bit shorter blanks. I think they're like 5 inches, pretty much. So there's a link to these if you want to pick one up in the description. So there's the mold. This mold, okay, so we're going to need to add a little extra resin to our main cup to start with, because we're going to be dumping it into lots of different cups, and there's going to be a little left over in the cup that's not going to get out. And in this case, we have so many different colors that I'm not leaving anything in this cup because it would just be like a super tiny amount. So there's going to be some resin left over on the walls of this cup that we need to account for. So typically you can get away with about 380. If you're just like mixing up 1, maybe 2 colors, you can probably get like 380 will get you filled, probably even with a little leftover. I usually do 400 just to make sure, and then I pour a little extra in the Happy Fun cup, In this case, we're going to go a little higher because we got a lot of things going on, and I just want to make sure that we don't run out. So we're going to go with 420 grams of resin total. We're using Alumilite Clear Slow. So that's going to be 210 times 2. And then we got 10 colors. Now, we got, let's see here. Deep Space. We've got Planet Blue. I'm just going to call it Planet Blue so I know what I'm talking about. Actually, I take it back. We're going to Beetle Blue. We've got Macaw. We've got Silver. One other thing to kind of keep in mind, we're using so many different colors in this that it's gonna probably be a little bit more diluted than if we just had 5 colors, right? Luckily, the way that we're pouring it, they're all these different ones are going to be kind of together, but there's only so much room in a pen blank, right? So having more colors means you're going to see less of all those colors. All right, we got silver, we got light tan, we've got dark brown, we've got red tan, then we've got spring green, daisy yellow, and Olympic gold. Okay, so those 3 are going to be dirty pour, 85 degrees. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is try to divide up this picture, divide the blank into percentages, ratios. So I mean, if we're really going to hold true, like this, the sky is almost more, but I don't know that we really need to do that. I think we could probably divide this into like thirds, which means that, let's see, that'll just make things pretty simple. So for these 3 colors, we're going to need 133 grams. But I think that the Olympic gold and the daisy yellow should be more of that. So 133 divided by, we'll just have a little bit of that green in there popping out. So we'll do like 70, so like 35%. 35. No, that's not right. Yeah, and then 30. Is that right? Yeah, that's 100. Okay. All right, so we're going to go with 47 grams of spring green and daisy yellow, and 40 grams of, no, wrong. Spring green is going to be 40 grams. Daisy yellow and Olympic gold are going to be 47 grams each. So it's going to be twice as much of like the kind of gold colors to this green in the end, but we're going to dump it all together. And then we've got these kind of like light, like the tans. They're going to be 133. And really, I think we could just split those into 3. So we're looking at about 44 grams of each. And then this one's going to be 133. Probably a little bit more of the deep space, I would say. Definitely than the silver. That's going to be kind of an accent color. So let's go with, let's see. We're going to go with 80 grams of deep space. No, we're going to go with 70. 70 grams of deep space. Sometimes you just got to play with numbers until you get things that you want. And then we're going to go with 20 grams of beetle blue, 20 grams of macaw, and 20 grams of silver. Actually, we're going to drop this. I don't like that. We're going to go with 50%. Let's see, 133 times 25. 60 grams of deep space. I really want to get these blues in there, so we're going to go with 30, 33, 33. That doesn't work out. That doesn't work. Okay, so 27. Sometimes you really got to finagle these numbers. So 60 grams of deep space, 27 of beetle blue, 27 of macaw blue green, and then 20 grams of silver. I'm going to change that one more time. I just want to make this simpler. 30 and 30 of the two blues. Which leaves us about 53 grams of deep space. Okay, so we got all of our numbers here. Deep space is going to be black dye plus micro starlight. For 30 grams, for these micas, for the 30 grams of each of these two blues, probably only need like maybe a quarter teaspoon. That should be like way plenty. Silver, an 1/8 teaspoon. See how that goes. Okay, for the light tan, using these dyes, the pigment colors, you don't necessarily need a whole ton of it in your resin. So let's see what we. It's not that much resin in the first place. So if we can get like a gram, I don't know, I'm going to try 1/2 gram of each one of these and see how it looks in the resin. But I think that's probably going to be enough. And then for these other 40s, I mean, you know, the green, yellow, and gold, same thing, quarter teaspoon of each. And we have our game plan, guys. Woo! This is pretty, it can get kind of crazy, especially I make things more difficult than they usually need to be. So there's probably much easier ways to do this, but this is the way that I do it. And that's why I titled the video, How I Design a Blank. This is not necessarily how everybody should do it, but hopefully you'll get some tips on, you know, some ideas of how to do things, possibly simplify some processes. But like I was saying, trying to figure out what you're going to do with a blank, it's going to take some time and thought to figure out, you know, what direction do you want to go. The dyes can be kind of a tough thing, trying to get dyes or even the colors matched up. That's probably going to be one of the tougher things if you're going for very specific colors and very close matches to things. But once you have your game plan, you know, the next step is we'll see what it looks like. And I think you're going to get a good idea of, you know, we're not going to know what these blanks look like until we pull them out and probably turn it. You know, the other issue with vertical blanks, really any kind of blank, you really do need to take off some layers to really see what it's going to look like. So I'll prep that, you know, before next week. And we'll probably turn one of these guys up just to see what they look like. But while you're mixing, you'll probably get an idea of how this is really going to, you know, play out and what to expect in the end. So let's get things kind of cleared up. Is there any questions? Okay, Gene, have a good one. Yeah, unfortunately, there's no such thing as a clear silicone mold. These ones are pretty close. I sell red ones, but I actually started, so Turner's Warehouse is going to be selling these as well, and they have these semi-clear, semi-transparent ones. I didn't realize it when I first started selling mine, but actually, if you backlight these, you can actually kind of see what, the resin going in, and you'll notice that I have lines on this one. It's because I use that to pour specific amounts into my molds. That way, like if you're doing a half and half, that way you can see. Unfortunately, with the red ones, you can't see, and I didn't even think about any of this stuff at first. And the funny thing is, the only reason I sell the red ones is because they take a better picture. They look better on the internet, and I was like, oh, okay, we'll just use red. Well, the clear ones I think are more useful. So pretty soon, Turner's Warehouse is actually going to have some of the clear Gatling molds. I don't have them yet. I still have red ones to sell, but eventually I'm probably going to just switch mine all of them over to the clear semi-transparent ones because they're a little bit more useful. So. Welsh Piper, welcome. Yeah, kitless would be good. I might have to just, so we're just, I did all those numbers for these, damn it. Yeah, we're just going to do these ones. I think, I don't want to have to redo all these numbers, unfortunately, to make the longer blanks. And I don't sell. I do have tall blank molds, but I don't sell these because they're a complete pain to make. So if you need the tall ones, you can get the tall ones from Turner's Warehouse, the P-Town subby ones. They work just fine. They're 8.5 inches. I wanted a little bit of extra room because I wanted to sell actually 8.5 inch blanks. So I make them 9. But it's just not worth me selling them because they're so tough to make that the way that I have it set up that I don't sell those ones. And I don't think that there's a whole, I would have to sell them for like $300 to make it worth my time. Nobody's buying them for that. So you can buy the P-Town ones. They work just as good and they're just a little bit shorter than mine. That I use. So I think what I'm going to do is we'll just take 2 of those blanks and just kind of cut them in half to make a kitless pen. Yeah, I'm probably going to blow pretty much the whole first round of those testing and doing stuff. Okay, just getting my brain on here. Now, one thing, we have so many colors. One thing I highly recommend, if you have a super complex pour like this, get as many colors, dyes, stuff, the colorants into your cups before you even start pouring part A or B. Get everything kind of, as lined up as you can. Now, we got really small amounts that we're dealing with here, which means I can use these super tiny cups. Actually, I can use the super tiny cups on most of these. It's good to have a good selection of cups, and like the paper cups are really good for this type of thing where you have lots of different colors. These are cheaper than plastic, and they work really well. They don't have ridges or anything in there, so it's good to have just a few different types of things. I think we can use these small ones. I think for most of these actually. Yeah, I think. I think we can do it for all of them. Hope it's not. I'm going to just test this before. This is such a complicated pour. I don't really want to get in the middle of this and then have to like change the cup that I'm using. So I'm just going to dump out some. I have some resin in a cup. This Nothing wrong with this stuff. It was just, I opened up a new batch, and this was the older resin, and I wanted to clean my jugs out. So I'm just going to dump in. I'm just testing to see how much this cup holds before we start doing all this stuff. Pretty sure 50 grams is not really going to be a big deal, but. And this is just the part A, but yeah, that's 30, 40. Yeah, we're fine. Okay. No biggie. I just wanted to kind of get an idea how full that's going to be. Because if it was like to the brim, that ain't going to really work. Okay. It was worth wasting a drip or two of resin just to kind of see where we were at. So, and I'm going to use this up. I just like to get it out of my gallon jugs, the old resin, so I can clean them out. So we got 10 colors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess this is where the camera is. 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, so we need a 1/4 teaspoon of a lot of colors. Let's get all these. We're not using these cups. I was just kind of demonstrating stuff with those. Okay, hopefully you guys can kind of see what's going on. Okay, so first things first, we're going to quarter teaspoon of this daisy yellow. Probably too much. An 1/8 teaspoon is probably more than enough. But the good news is you can't put too much, like having too much mica powder, that's not a thing. Having too little, that could be a thing. So if you're ever in doubt, add more mica powder to it. And we're not going for any kind of see-through areas, translucence with this. That adds a kind of an entire other level of complexity. Trying to get very specific translucence in blanks, and I'm not even really that good at it. I don't do it a whole lot because most of the blanks, most of the people that buy my blanks are using kits, and you really don't want, it's just kind of a pain to have a lot of translucence when you're making a kit pen because of the tubes. When you get into the bespoke pens, you got a lot more room to really explore the. Let's see, put the stupid things in the right place. To explore the translucence, you still kind of have an issue. Sanding the inside of pens is not particularly fun, so a lot of people still stay away from it, but you do have the option without having to see tubes. Or I think the main thing is with the kitless or bespoke pens, the nice thing is, the tube forces you to paint. So in kits, the tube actually forces you to paint either the blank or the tube. And the problem is, for very transparent blanks, that's going to alter the way the blank itself looks. Whereas, with the kitless pens, the only problem is there's a little bit more work involved with sanding the inside of the pen, but it's not going to alter the way the blank looks. And so that's one of the main reasons why I really stayed away from translucent blanks. For the most part, because it can really kind of I would actually go as far as to say it destroys the integrity of the blank, not the mechanical integrity, but the look and feel of it. And so it kind of wastes all of the work that you tried to do getting a very specific look when then you paint it and it just changes it completely. Okay, so we got those. We need some silver. Didn't get the silver yet. And that's a very small cup. So we're just going to use an 1/8 teaspoon of that. Not a bad idea to like mark on your cups before you start how many grams each one needs, stuff like that. If you have any instructions that you got to add to them, just so you don't get kind of confused and mess up stuff. I think I'll be okay if I don't talk too much as I'm doing it. Okay, so then we got just a few left. We got the 3 dyes. I like to dump dyes into the resin so they don't just hit the cup and kind of some of the dye gets stuck on the cup. So we're gonna wait to fill our cups up with the dyes. But I think that we're pretty much ready. It's just gonna be a matter of a lot of mixing and filling cups after we get it mixed up. So we need 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stir sticks. We got those colors. Where's this? There's the brown. We need black. Okay, I think we're ready. Are you guys ready? 10 color pour. Luckily, it's not very warm in the shop, so I'm not that worried about it. There is a lot of complexity. Now, the biggest thing that I need to remember is the order in which we're doing all this stuff. Okay, so when it comes to the actual pour, when we start pouring stuff in, these 3, what's going on here? Yellow, did I not? Yeah, there's the gold. These 3 are going to be dumped together. And that's actually something I also have to think about. We're gonna need, we got a couple of dirty pours that are happening. So technically, what I would rather do is have one cup that's bigger so that I can dump these 2 into that one and it'll hold all of it, hopefully. These 2 are gonna be dumped together, so we're gonna do another one of those. Again, it's good to really think about how is this actually going to be? What's going to happen when you start mixing things up and you start needing to pour things? How is this all going to play out? So I need to mix these up. We're going to dump them all into there, and then that needs to go into the mold somewhat evenly. And that's where, it wouldn't be a bad idea to, if I really wanted to get a third of the pour, in each one of these tubes, I could set this up with that backlight. I don't think it's particularly necessary in this case. You can look down in there and see. We're just going to kind of dump it. It's one color basically, is one pour. So it'll be pretty easy just to kind of estimate about a third. That's going to go in the mold first. Then we have our dyes, the kind of sand colors. They're going to go in next, and they're going to be 3 separate colors that we're going to have to pour one after the other. Then we're going to have deep space, which would be, this cup, the black, silver, and then we're going to mix these 2 together. So this is a pretty complicated pour. I'm not going to lie. Very complicated. I would probably not recommend starting out with a complicated pour such as this as your first attempt at doing all this stuff. Try to pick something that has less colors or variations and requires less things going on. Moving parts, as they say, for your first few. Okay, so let's see here. Oh yeah, that's not right. Tear, there we go. Probably gonna need more of these things. So we're getting ready to mix up the resin. Again, I'm going to be using Alumilite Clear Slow. There's a 12-minute working time or so. Well, that'll be exciting. I like it because it's long enough to get even a complex pour like this done, but it's short enough that I'm not sitting here waiting and waiting and waiting to actually be able to pour it. So, like I said, this isn't anything special. What I do, I'm going to switch to this camera just so that hopefully nobody's very confused. So what I do is I buy 10 gallons of resin at a time, and then I fill these gallon jugs so that I can use it easily here. I ran out. I finished up that 10 gallons worth. There was this much left in these jugs. So I dumped it out, and then what I do is I clean my gallon jugs out with acetone before I break open a new 10-gallon kit, just to make sure there's no old resin in there. Just to let everybody know what I'm doing with all these different resin cups and things that are going on. It is kind of weird, but I like to get it out of there so I can clean it up, you know. So this is part A. And I don't have a problem like mixing, you know, this older resin. It's not old. There's no problem with that. But so what we're doing is we're mixing all the resin up, which is going to be 210 grams of part A, 210 of part B. Oh, I actually got a little extra left. And we're probably going to have leftover, like excess, and that's fine. So 210 part A, 210 part B. I'll leave the saran wrap on there. And I cover it, and then I put it in the little fridge thing. Oh, I didn't really think about that. This is going to be cooler resin. That's okay. I don't usually store my clear slow resin in the little fridge thing. I don't really find it necessary. I do store the Alumilite white in there because that stuff is, you have a 2-minute working time, so I have to do everything I can to keep it, to slow that process down. So if you're in like the summer, or if you have like a really complicated pour, you can chill, cool down your resin a little bit by putting it in the fridge for a little while. That's not like fridge temperatures, that freezer behind me. I don't know if you guys can even see it. So I have this little chest freezer thing. I have I don't exactly know what you call this, like a temperature controller unit thing. And so I keep it at like 50 degrees, 55, to keep that. You don't need it at like 40 necessarily, but you can be somewhere in that range. I just wanted to let you guys know about that. If you do need to extend the working time of your resin, you can chill it down a little bit, especially in those hot summer months. There's just sometimes some resins are just, it's too hot to even use it if it was just sitting out on your desk, if you stored it in the garage or something like that. All right, now I got to keep my notes close because I got to see all these things. One thing I will say, it's a lot easier to try to just kind of keep most of those numbers, the amounts of resin in each one of these cups, similar, the same, basically. That would make things a little bit easier, not having so many different things going on. So the macaw is 30, so each one of these is 30 grams. And it doesn't have to be all perfect or anything necessarily. I'm not going to have a whole lot of time to be messing around. Actually, it is nice that this stuff is chilled, I guess. I have a little more time than normal. Not particularly hot in my shop. It's pretty cool right now, so I should have plenty of time, working time and all that. This one's 20. And then the black is going to be 53. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Olympic gold is 47. Close enough. The green is only 40. 47. All right, and then we get our dies, which are 44 each. Move a little bit there. 44. And hopefully we'll have enough here. Perfect. Oh, that was pretty good. So you can see it's good to have a little extra resin, because if I would have just made 400 up, we wouldn't have had enough. Now we're going to add our dyes, about a 0.5 grams in each one of these guys, or so. If it's a little over or whatever, it's not a big deal. 0.5. I want to see what this looks like with the resin really quick. Oh yeah, I think we did that good. I think that's going to be a good one. Cool. I was just that was the only one that I was like, I don't know. Kind of close. 0.5. A little heavier on that one, but okay. Putting more in here is not going to alter the color or anything, so it's just going to make it more opaque, basically. And then brown. Is the brown right? Yeah. Probably don't even really need that much. 0.2 grams probably do fine. So in the final blank, the way to kind of tell how translucent something's going to be is just pull your stick out, and if you can see the grain on your stir stick, then it's too see-through. You will definitely see the tube in the end. We need to get black and micro starlight in there. So black, I don't know, it doesn't need to be that much. Honestly, one drop might actually be enough. The black. Black tends to make the, yeah, that's fine. I think that's good. Maybe one more. You just never know. We're doing black dye and then the micro starlight, which I'm telling, this is like my favorite mixture. I can actually show you a cap. I was playing around with those. And you don't even need that much. You just put a little bit of micro starlight in there. Mix it up. Oh, well, we're gonna need a little bit more, I guess. That second drop of black, I think, did it. The more dye that you put in, the more starlight you're gonna have to add. Oh, there we go. I can see it now. Can you guys see that? Isn't that sweet? Just little stars, little twinkling star things. Okay. So we got our black. Now we just got to mix. So this definitely helps when you have extra hands. If you got help in the shop, have somebody else mixing up your cups, you know, doing half of them for you or whatever. That can kind of help you get through and not have any issues. Let me get these guys. These are done. Those out of my way. They're going to be the middle pour. These are the last pour. Look at that silver though, guys. That's the P-Town gray silver. Probably, like to try and really get a true silver, I mean, it's probably the best out there. So Alumilite used to sell a metallic silver that was pretty good, but it was super finicky. It was really light. It was a very fine powder. And the problem was you had to like really wait till the end of the working time with that stuff, or else it would literally float like up to the top and separate, and it was a pain. This stuff is really good for a silver. Yeah, so we got a pretty interesting, so that, you know, like Chad's saying, once you start mixing these colors up, you've poured them, you can kind of get an idea of like, okay, how's this blank going to really look? What are these colors going to be doing? And yeah, I think this is going to be pretty cool. I'm really excited that we got to use the Macaw Blue Green and Blue Beetle. I think that's going to be really, for that planet, I really love that planet. I think that's going to be an interesting mixture. We got that, those three. All right, so at this point, I just want to kind of let these all sit for a second and make sure that what can happen is it looks like it's mixed up, but see these little bits of mica? If you let it just kind of sit for a little bit, the unmixed in portions of mica will float to the top usually. So I like to just make sure that, you know, we've mixed the mica in good. Let's see what our temperature is. So, all right, we're already at 85. So we want to pour these together. And I could have maybe altered this green a little bit. It may be a little bit kind of crazy. Ooh, that's going to be pretty close. That might not be enough cup. Just barely. Ooh. Okay. Get those guys out of the way. I'm going to mix that up. So this is maybe a little bit too much green, but that's not too bad for the bottom landscape. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so this is our black. That goes with this. So I got to be honest, we don't even need to look at this anymore. We can just pour it. That's probably pretty good. We did that. The next step is going to be these colors mixed, but we do need to wait. We need to wait till the end of the working time on these. This is going to be the difficult part of this blank. Realistically, I would rather have poured these in first, probably. Obviously, it doesn't really work with this picture, you know, if we're really trying to get that separation. One thing we could have done probably is just skipped all the micas and just really focused on like getting maybe even one or two more colors that kind of work for all of this stuff and done it all with dyes. That probably would have been I don't know if I'm going to say better, but it probably would have been a lot easier to do it that way. Just because these dyes, the opaque pigments, are typically really heavy and they sink. So we're at 90 degrees. I think I'm gonna wait till like 92. It's only 71 in the shop, so I think if we wait till about 92 degrees, these will be good to go. I think we can pour our two blues together at this point, so I don't have to worry about that later. Okay. Give that a little bit of a mix. I think that's pretty good for the planet. I think that's not too shabby. This, and then the silver. Okay, so we should be at about 92 degrees, I think. We're close enough. We're going to go for it. So I'm going to go for this kind of lighter tan. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing. And this might kind of mix a little bit with the micas. That's why, you know, for this specific blank, I'm not super upset about these dyes, you know, possibly being a little bit heavy and mixing in, because it all kind of does go together with all that stuff anyway, you know. Okay, a little bit more down in here. I'm trying to even things up. Just a little bit. I think we'll be good in the amounts, but just in case. Okay, and then deep space. I'm going to try and pour that a little bit carefully. In fact, I think we're going to go for like really trying to fill these up a little ways with the black. First, then we're going to add the blue. And some silver. And then I like to give it, let's see here. I usually give it a little bit of a swirl. I didn't really think about this part of it. Let's see here. I think what I'm going to do, usually I use a bent stick. I'm going to use just a flat stick, and this is a very thin one. And we're just going to give it a very, very light, like dunking, let's call it. I'm just going to kind of dunk it in, spin it around a little bit, just to kind of mix those up a little bit, you know. Okay, there we have it. I think I'm going to just top these guys off a little bit more with this silver. The tops are going to get cut off anyway, so not a big deal. I might make them a little bit longer than normal, but we got it. And then let's see here. You guys can see it go into the pot. I don't know. Not too shabby. Those things are going to be pretty wicked, I think. I mean, definitely unique. I have never seen a blank that looks like this in my life. So again, that's why I kind of I leaned towards the desert landscape one. because I could just kind of, that other one had so many colors that I use on kind of a regular basis that I was like, I already kind of know which direction I'm probably going to end up going with this. And it wouldn't have really required me to think much because there's a lot of colors that I always use that I would just pull out. So this was pretty fun. I hopefully it was fun for you guys too. Hopefully you maybe learned something new or got a good idea out of it. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup. I like to save my stir sticks, and so there's a lot of them. I'm not going to mess around with trying to dump the excess into the Happy Fun cup because there just really isn't. Well, maybe we can get some of that. Most of these, there's really not that much resin. Well, I take it back. We can do it. There's a little bit. Sort of. A little bit more interested in getting all my stir sticks cleaned up, to be honest. I can reuse them. Really like that. Oh yeah, I'm not gonna mess with that. There's just not enough in there. I'm gonna be sitting there waiting for it to dump. This one, I think we got a little bit more in there. So I'll look at the chat in 1 second. I'm just trying to get things cleaned up. And then if anybody has questions, just let me know. And I'll try to answer them. So these 10 color pours, they definitely require a lot more cups. And yeah, I just thought I'd do like a simple thing on the stream. No big deal. I mean, sometimes things just get, some of these people just do way too complicated stuff on their live streams. Okay, we're almost done. I'm just gonna wipe these off. So that'll be kind of cool. Hopefully that green mixture wasn't too green in there. I don't know. And that's the thing, I was saying a lot of times you're probably not going to get, you're going to have a good idea the first time and you're like, oh, let's try this. Usually it doesn't take that much more than like 2 or 3 tries. Like you see like, oh, wow, I way overdid it with the green. Like I could maybe just get rid of green next time. And so within a couple tries, if you're really going for something very specific, if you have something in mind, you should be able to get to the point within a few tries where you've pretty well nailed it, It shouldn't take too long, too many attempts to get it. Now, when you're just starting out trying to get like very specific colors, though, that is where things are a little bit more difficult, It can be kind of tough. Like there's certain colors, and sometimes you just got to give up and walk away for a little bit. Just, it's just some certain colors are just elusive. It seems like, at least that's how it's been for me. And sometimes if you just like put it on the shelf, walk away for months, sometimes years, in my case. Sometimes you come back to it and through the course of your various, experiments and things, maybe you put some colors together that you're like, oh, I remember, if I do this and that, I can get pretty close. So it's just one of those, it's a matter of the more experience you have, the more things you've tried, the easier it becomes. How many grams are in the eye candy pots? I'm not sure what how many grams of resin. There was probably, it was 40 something, 45, 44 in those ones. Yeah, those colors can make some good graffiti blanks. Oh, nice. Some people do. Did did Chad do a part A with part A? I've done that before too. I'm like, why isn't this curing? What is going on? I got bad. Well, actually, let me tell you. I don't know. Some of you guys might have been around long enough to remember this. At one point, so I ordered. Oh, and by the way, guys, I'm really I think these are linked. I got this idea from Elise over at Starry Night Resins. These cups are really good at popping the stuff out. Like, it does not stick to these things. So they're a little bit more expensive. Like, I actually went on and I was like, how much are these compared to, I'll buy like 100 of those quart mixing cups. The other ones. These are what I usually use. So these are like 50 cents a piece. If you buy like 100 of them, I don't know what they are if you only buy like 10. But just to give you an idea, so 100 pack, a case of 100, you can get these for like 50 cents each. These are about 75 cents each, and it was like a 25 pack, I want to say 30, something like that. And I have it linked in the description, but these are pretty good. I was like, oh, I just did that one. I should have saved one. I was popping a lot of, like, cleaning them out, and all you got to do is just crinkle them, and like the whole thing just pops right out. It's pretty good. So just to let you know. Oh, you did that? Okay, so I didn't tell you so I ordered two 10-pound, like the 10-gallon kits, one of Alumilite White, one of Alumilite Clear Slow, and somehow I mixed up like two of the part A's. So like basically I'm mixing like part A Alumilite White with part B Alumilite Clear. And so like I screwed up the jugs and everything. And so like I'm contacting Alumilite because like one of them, like you would pour it together and it would just like totally, like in 2 seconds, cure on me. And I'm like, what is going on with this stuff? And then the other one would never cure. And I was like, what's happening? And finally I realized that I had switched the actual like carboys, the 5-gallon things. And I was like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. I'm on the phone with Alumilite. I'm like, your resin's messed up. What's happening? It's just I need resin. And then I called him back and I'm like, I figured out the problem. I'm an idiot. So that was the worst one that I've done though. So how many grams in the mica powder? Oh, I don't know how many grams are in these. I have no clue. No clue, honestly. These ones are net weight 3.9 ounces, 110 grams. So these are the big ones from P-Town. I have no clue how much is in the eye candy ones. It doesn't say. You'll have to go on either their website or Turner's Warehouse. They have the amounts listed on their listings. There you go, Chad, 50 grams. I don't know. I wish they would make bigger ones from eye candy. So anyway, next week we're gonna check and see what's going on with these things. I'm a little bit torn because I do like the idea of making a kitless pen, but that's really not going to give us any kind of an answer of what these things look like. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about it. Bare minimum, I think what I'm gonna do is probably turn one of these things back into, so like when I'm making a new blank or whatever, or yeah, any blank, what I do is I'll turn it back, so that I can see with like different kind of layers, and just that way I can kind of see what does this thing actually look like, because comparatively, do I have a root beer? Well, here's a good example. better example. The problem is this doesn't tell me anything, right? That's not what the blank is going to look like. So I like to turn them back so that I can actually kind of see, okay, what is the swirl pattern actually going to look like? Because the problem is when you're dumping into a tube, it just kind of, sometimes it just runs down the side, and that's really all you see on the blank when you demold it. So it's very difficult to see what you're actually dealing with. So I think I'm going to turn one back before next week, and then I'll have to kind of think about which way I want to go with that. If we want to turn one of those into a kitless pen, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do. But big thank you to Turner's Warehouse, the whole team, for coming up with some really cool ideas. So down in the comments of the video, not the chat, but in the actual comments, let me know if this is something that you would like to see more of, where we get some sort of an inspiration and then make a blank. Maybe not make it as complicated as it was today. And I did that. It was my own thing, but I did that kind of, like I said, on purpose this time, just to kind of cover a lot of different aspects. But if you want to see some more of these ideas where, we come up with some sort of an inspiration and then try and, match some colors and put stuff together, leave a comment, an actual comment down in the description thing below. So it should be pretty cool. Yeah, Junior Duke, that's true. Actually, that would probably look good on a Junior Duke. Oh yeah, I write A and B and all that stuff. I mean, I put it on the cap, on the jug, and you can still do it anyway, but I try to label everything so I don't do that. But that's the word. I've never done that. That one would really get me. Yeah, I think that blank's gonna look, I mean, bare minimum, it's gonna have a lot of things going on with it. It's gonna be like, crazy. And yeah, so don't forget, guys, the Junior Dukes are on sale. They're super cheap. They're 13 bucks. Those are a really good kit. Like, that's like upper echelon for me. It's like one of my favorites. So 13 bucks for a kit, and they got good finishes, like platings on them. And don't forget, if you guys haven't started watching, Chad's been doing the custom pen or bespoke or kitless or whatever word you want to use for pens that do not come with a kit. Or not made with a kit. He's doing a whole series on, he's already gone through what tools do you need. He's like drilled and tapped like the cap and the body, done that with a section, and then also turned up the pieces. And I think it's next Wednesday. I think he's doing, are you doing the clip next week? It's either that or rollerball nib or something. But it's really cool, and I've been watching all of them, and if I missed it, I watch back, because I'm learning all kinds of really cool tips and stuff. But if you're thinking about getting into that kind of stuff, like, you definitely want to watch this series, because he's totally knocking it out of the park. It's like the best, as far as I'm concerned, it's the best like resource for all the information you need to get into this that I've seen from anybody. So anyway, the clip. That one I'm very interested in, because I have a general idea of how you would do it, but I have actually never really even been told how people generally do it. So that one's a totally new one for me, so I'm excited. So hopefully I'll be able to tune in and watch live. But anyway, guys, I hope you had a good time checking this thing out. We'll see what the results are next week. We'll come up with something new to make. And I think that's about it, guys. So have a great rest of the day. Get in the shop, do some resin casting or some turning or football watching, whatever you're up to, and we'll see you guys on the next stream.